Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make the Annette bag by Swoon Sewing Patterns. I did make a few changes, as you can probably see. We added piping to this bag, which I will go in depth and show you guys how to do. It's definitely not necessary, but it adds a little bit more pizzazz to your bag. We also changed up the connectors for the bag because I personally have had customers complain that the U-shaped connector that this bag comes with has broken, which is a big bummer, as beautiful as it looks. We also, here I'll show you guys an up close on that piping that we added. And then we added purse feet, of course. And then for the lining, we used waterproof canvas. I added a slip pocket to this bag, and I show you guys how to do that as well. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Please make sure you subscribe. Comment down below if you enjoyed this video. Let me know if the tips helped you. And be sure to join us in our sewing group called Sew Whatever over on Facebook. Enjoy! Alright, so if you're watching this video, hopefully you've already watched how to cut and interface this bag. If not, I do have a video on that. So I'm gonna start with my handles. I always find it's easiest to start with the handles, especially if you've got a brand new bobbin or something like that, and then you won't run out of thread at that point, so that's always nice. So I'm gonna start by taking a piece of double-sided tape along the length of my handle, centered across that line. Repeat for the other. And then I'm going to unpeel it, and you should have a little bit of tape along the side, or along each side of the center of your handle. And you just want to fold in just right next to the center line. So not all the way on it, but just right up next to it. And then a little bit of gap in between the handles. This just helps so when you fold it over, it's not so tight. There's room for it to fold. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to set that one aside and work on this one, and then we're going to sew them. Found a playlist of non-copywritten music, so hopefully that helps with how quiet it usually is in the videos. Alright, so I'm going to fold it in half one more time so there are no raw edges except for the top and the bottom of the strap. And then I'm just going to sew along the sides, the top and the bottom. I'm not going to be using strap ends on this bag, so I want to be nice and careful with my stitches because I can't really hide them. And then I'm just going to trim off the little bit of excess so they're nice and straight. I'm being daring and I'm using a white thread with this navy vinyl. Hopefully the customer loves it. I think she will. It's gonna be a gorgeous bag. Gorgeous. Well, a whole set. She ordered a wallet as well as a little zipper pouch. Cut off the little bit of excess. Perfect. And now I'm going to work on the strap connectors. I'm making this bag a little bit differently because I have these unique connectors. These are actually kind of a mashup of my own and the Louise handbag by Swoon. And what I've done is I've added a piece of Decoville light that is 3/4 of an inch wide, so that one, there's extra stability, and two, when you fold this over, it's exactly the size you need it to be. I don't know why it took me so long to think of that, but it did. Here we are. I'm gonna turn up the lighting just a little bit more. There we go. And another unique thing I'm doing is I'm adding piping to this bag. It's not something that it calls for, but it's something that my customers can pay a little extra for. So I'm gonna go ahead and iron my piping really quick. Pretty much gonna use all of it. When you're making bags with piping, it can be a little intimidating at first, but it does get easier as you go on. But you do want to make sure that you buy extra just in case, because you could run out in the middle of your project, you could mess something up and need more, and there could be different dye lots, so that gets hard. So I'm going to add a piece of tape along the center because we need to sew that down first. And I'm only adding the tape from the bottom of the notches to the top. You might be asking yourself why I'm not doing the normal connector for the Annette, and it's because I've had customers contact me that little U-shape connector actually started to rip at the top because it's not strong enough. It's very cute. And it can hold up with proper interfacing, but just the way the pattern says to make it is not enough for my experience. So I'm folding those in. And again, that piece of Decoville light really helps keep the shape of the strap connector, and I'm excited that one day I randomly thought of it. I was like, now wait a minute. It's gonna help with the longevity of your bag, and it's gonna help you make it. Hey Ben, what are you doing? Are you gonna come hang with us? Come here, come on. So now what you wanna do is you're gonna sew down these edges. I think this is something that can be skipped, but it's gonna help you help your bag last a little bit longer. Go on, get off the table. Lay down. Lay down. Okay. And I'm just using a 4.5 stitch length, going down one side, down the back, down the other side, and you want to make sure that you're very precise with where you start and stop, especially if you're using a contrasting thread like this. my excess threads now. This can be quite tedious. Okay, and now another thing that I do, you can absolutely skip this step for these connectors, but I add a little bit of piping around the outside edge. This takes about 6 inches per connector, but I'm just gonna wait until I'm all done and actually cut it out. So starting in the center back, you take a piece of double-sided tape and then you just go around the outer edge. I don't know what made me think to do this, but I did it for one bag and then I was hooked and people loved the look and they keep ordering it, so I'll keep making it. I'll give you a close-up of what that looks like. So the tape starts in the center and you can fold the double-sided tape on itself and then when you pull it off it stays that way, so that's nice. So starting in the center, just fold it at like a 90-degree angle. Tape the whole way around. I'm sorry for the noise my AC makes. My husband's upstairs playing video games, so I can't turn it off. Normally I turn it off and then just deal with getting hot. One more. All right. So all 4 are done. And now I'm going to grab my main panels so that I can sew them on. I'm taking a little bit of risk with all the different colors I'm using on this bag, but they're all in the bag, so hopefully the customer appreciates it and likes the end result. I mean, that's always the hope, right? All right. So I'm going to start undoing this double-sided tape. See what I mean? When you start to peel it, it just kind of keeps its shape. And then I'm gonna take one piece of the piping. I'm gonna start in the center underneath there. And just the same way we folded the tape, you're gonna fold it around the connector. I'll zoom in for this part so you guys can see what I mean. So I'm just kind of folding it underneath. Squish that double-sided tape back. Fold it again. And then once you get back to the center, you're gonna trim it. And then once you sew it on, it looks way better. I'm using this like lighter navy with this darker navy leather or vinyl, so fingers crossed that my customer likes it. That's what that looks like. So now I'll keep going. Well, I'll do 2 and then I'll do the other 2 after, because sometimes the tape can kind of shift. So again, I'm just starting in the center on the back, working my way around the edge. Pressing it into place. This double-sided tape, you could use Dritz double-sided basting tape, or this is 1/4 inch leather tape from waywack.com. Waywack? I'm gonna say Waywack. Okay, so once you get to the center, just cut off the extra. And you want them to overlap in the center so that it's hidden underneath your strap connector. Alright, so I have 2 that are ready. So I'm gonna add yet another piece of double-sided tape, but this time I'm using 1/2 inch double-sided tape. And you're gonna cut a piece that's about 1.5 inches, and you're going to cover the tip like that. Okay. And now we're gonna grab our 3/4 inch hardware square ring connectors, and they should fit perfectly because of that Decaville. And you're gonna fold it under till about there. So that's what the connector ends up looking like. We're gonna repeat that. The next one, fold that under. And then what I kind of do is set them next to each other to make sure I've folded under enough. And huzzah, I did. So I'm gonna zoom you guys back out really quick while I grab my ruler. And this is gonna be 1.5 inches from the top. So it's a 9-inch wide piece. And then we're gonna set this 1.5 inches from the outside edge. Oh yeah, that looks so good. Awesome. So your outside ring is 1.5 inches from the outer edge. And then you want to push down pretty hard. You want to make sure you catch it all. And then we're going to start sewing. I'm going to zoom you guys in again for that, so you guys can see a little better. Oh, sorry. Wrong way. Alright. And I'm actually going to start on the outside edge because this connector is a bit much. I'm going to switch my stitch length down to 4 so that it's nice and secure, and I'm just going to go really, really slow along the outer edge. And then stop at the tip and make my way back up. Nice and slow until I get to the top of that connector again, but don't sew through the piping, and then I'm just going to back stitch a few times. And then you can sew across, but I have this walking foot machine and it's gonna scuff the top of my connector. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make my way back around again, but this time I'm gonna do it just a little ways away from the original stitch, so in towards the center again. So I'm gonna back stitch at the beginning, and then I'm just gonna go really slow. I'm following the inside edge of my foot. Just going really slow. You wanna stop at the tip and then make your way back around. Back up. back stitch without going through the piping. Oh yeah, she looks pretty. Okay, so there's what that ends up looking like, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add 2 rivets right there so that it's extra strong and it looks really nice. So I'm just gonna repeat that with this other one. Kind of tape it back into place if it's shifted a little bit. You can also grab your ruler again. You do not want these to look crooked at all. That would look bad. So we're gonna back stitch quite a few times. Come around the edge. And then what I kind of do to make sure that I stop at the correct point is I'll keep my hand on my reverse lever and just kind of set up where I want to be. So I use the reverse lever and the turn knob, and then I come back around, I do one little back stitch, and then I slowly make my way up the side. And then before I get to that piping, I'm gonna start back stitching. And then kind of in the ditch almost, I'm gonna go over one stitch, move my connector out of the way a little bit, reverse, and go back around the connector. And then again, here at that tip, I'm gonna use my reverse lever and my turn knob. There we go. Yes. Oh. Gorgeous. I'm in love. So there's what that looks like. And then you can mark where you're gonna add your 2 rivets, but I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside for now and add my rivets once I finish the other connectors. So I'll zoom you guys back out so you can watch Ben sleeping, because he's so cute. Connor's here too, he's just laying on the floor. Connor is my other cat, in case you were wondering. All right, so we're gonna undo that tape. Make sure you can't see the tape from the outside, because all it's gonna do is collect gunk if you can see it on the outside. If your threads are fraying a little bit, you can just grab your lighter, or a lighter, I'm sorry, I don't mean to assume that you have one. And just kind of hit those threads a little bit, especially if you're using a bonded polyester or a bonded nylon. Oh, okay. So starting in the center, working your way around. This is a really slow thing at first, but you will get better. You want to make sure that you can't see that stitch line. That's a really important step. There's like a basting stitch with piping, and you don't want to see it on the outside. You want it to be a really nice, tight fit. Pressing that tape from the wrong side. I'm really, really excited to add the zipper to this bag, because I found the perfect match to this like dark mauve color in my stash. Ooh, I'm excited. One of the hardest parts about making this bag was the zipper the very first time I made it, so hopefully if you haven't seen one of my videos before about the Annette, because I have like, I don't know, 12, 14, I've made so many, that are in my sewing group. Those are a little more impromptu, especially since they're live, so a lot of people are commenting and chatting with me, and they're just a lot of fun. So I'm gonna grab some tape again. And I'm gonna catch the bottom of the piping with that tape. Keep it straight. So hopefully you guys can see how I caught the bottom edge. I'm gonna grab my connectors. Slide that through. Oop. 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 That one's under just a little more than the others were. There we go. So you want to make sure that you have enough tape left on the bottom so that you can tape it down. Otherwise, you could use a small square to catch that and then use a larger piece of tape along the back. But you don't want to add way too much tape because then it gets harder to sew through, especially since a lot of machines can't handle double-sided tape and it gunks them up. My machine is a professional and knows how to do its job, or I get mad at it. Okay, so I'm just kind of lining these up, making sure they're about the same size. And I'm gonna lay this down 1.5 inches from the top. And then 1.5 inches from the outside edge. Pressing it down 1.5 inches from the outside edge. And a trick that I use to get them flat is to push. Right now I'm pushing with my finger against my ruler so that I know it's nice and flat because that ruler is flat. Sorry. Notifications popping up. Okay, so I won't need this ruler again, so I'm gonna try not to disturb Ben and hang that back up. All right, so we're ready to add those stitches. Such satisfying stitches. Oh, I love it. All right, so we're starting on the edge here. And if you ever lift your needle up, make sure you, or if you ever lift your foot up, make sure you leave your needle down. Otherwise your fabric will shift and you won't have a nice clean edge. And that's not good. Just one stitch over, turn, move that hardware. so now I'm going to add my rivets, and then we can move on to the other portions of this bag. So I'm going to need 8 antique gold rivets. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hole punch first. I'm gonna start at the base of where my stitching is. I'm gonna add 1 to each of them. At the base of where the stitching is. And you don't have to add 2 if you don't want to. You can just add the 1 base of the stitching. But I think that adding 2 of them helps alleviate the stress on one of them. Okay. Now we're gonna add our second. And I wouldn't recommend eyeballing your rivets unless you've set hundreds and hundreds like I have. Then it's okay. I mean, I'm not saying that my rivets turn out perfectly every time, but they turn out pretty darn good. All right, so we've got all of our holes set. To set the rivets. I have a whole separate video on how to set rivets, so I'm not going to really explain it in this one. Just going to push the post through the back and the caps. Yeah, these might be a little close together. That's my bad. No, they look good. They're fine. I like it. Oh, I like it a lot. That's what that'll look like. So the rivet becomes definitely an added strength, but also a little added bling, if you will. And both of these rivets are going through the long back piece of the connector as well. Ooh, man, oh man, those look so good. I'm excited. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly add the bottom panel as well while I'm here, and then I'll add the nameplate and we'll get on with the rest of the bag. So I'm laying the bottom panel across the bottom of the bag, and I'm gonna add 2 clips. My stitch length is set to 3.5, and I'm just going to start along the edge. You're not sewing through the Peltex, you're just sewing right next to it. And now we're going to fold it over. We're going to switch our stitch length to a 4.5 and fold it over. And then sew along the bottom edge. And we kind of have this theme with the double stitching, so I'm gonna add another row of stitches that are the inner foot away from the other one. Again, the 2 rows of stitching is absolutely not necessary. I just kind of want to mimic what I have going with the outside connectors. So you can see that. And now with the other panel face up, I'm just going to clip it down. We're going to switch back to the 3.5 to sew these together. I am back stitching. I knew I'd run out of bobbin. That's okay, this is a good place to run out. Better now than when we're top stitching because I can hide that. And now I know we have a fresh bobbin, so that should get us through the side and lining, and then I'll switch bobbins when I top stitch. Switch my stitch length back to a 4.5, and then I'm just folding it open, and I'm going to do a double line of stitching. And then we're going to add purse feet. Colors are so beautiful. Originally the customer wanted like a brown vinyl, and the ones I found were okay, but when I saw this navy with it, I was like, yes, I hope she wants this. All right, so purse feet. Bypiera.com has a purse foot marker, which would come in handy. I haven't had a chance to purchase it. But I like to go 1 inch from this seam and 1.5 inches inward. So I have this 1 inch ruler, so 1.5 inches from the outside edge, and then I just line up the edge with this seam and make a mark. This is a Tandy leather chalk marking pen. You can use a ballpoint pen too, or a gel pen if you want, but this is easily removed, so that's a good thing. This bottom panel is 12 inches wide. So I'm gonna find my center, which is 2.25, right? 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Yeah, that's 2.25. And then I'm gonna come in from that and make a mark because 6 inches is my center. So I'm adding 5 purse feet. These are sold through my website in packs of 5. So lucky you. And they do come with washers. These are not the washers they come with. These are just the ones I have close to my sewing area, but the washers they come with work great. So I'm using my Tulip Pink seam ripper, and I'm just poking the holes vertically, not horizontally. Not that it really matters, but it's just easier to find the openings. And I'm gonna grab my purse feet. These are 12mm purse feet. I think these are a nice size. They're not too big, they're not too small, they're just right. I did not discuss hardware with the customer, so I hope she likes this antique gold. I thought it just looked way too pretty with these colors to not put on the bag. So we're gonna flip it over, and then I'm actually going to turn the purse feet. This helps keeps them nice and tight. And then I'm gonna part them a little bit, and then I'm gonna slide them through the washers. These washers can come off when you're sewing the bag together. It happens, you know, you're turning it right side out and then some and back out. But once your bag is finished, you can resituate those before you close up the birthing hole, and then they're set. Unless they get caught on something, they're not coming out. And I don't mean like a little something, I mean like a big something. or if you feel like yanking super hard on it, that would work too. So there are our purse feet all added. That's what it looks like from the outside. I'm gonna just feel all over it because it's super soft. So I'm going to add my nameplate really quick. Unfortunately, all I have is silver hardware for nameplates. I haven't plunged for other colors just yet because it's super expensive. If you want to add nameplates to your bag but you don't have the hundreds of dollars it takes to get them in every single color, I do sell small packs that say handcrafted in every single hardware color on my website. So that's a really fun way to, you know, make your bag stand out and let people know that they are handcrafted. So this back has the center mark, so I'm just gonna use that. I'm gonna go 2 inches up. I think that'll look really nice. I don't really want it right there. I want it kind of down towards the bottom. And then I'm gonna center that and then find the center of this nameplate. And it's just past the 1 inch mark. And then again, I'm gonna use my Tulip Pink seam ripper and poke those holes. And then from the outside, I'm gonna try and find those holes. There it is. Oh yeah, that's exactly where I wanted it. And then turning it around, gonna add the washer, push it down, and push them out. And now you have a nameplate added to your bag. Okay, so I'm gonna set this piece aside and we're gonna work on the outside of our bag. I'm doing this a little bit differently as well because I'm adding all that piping. But trust me when I tell you the end result is amazing. So I'm gonna take this panel, I'm gonna grab my piping and I'm gonna cut about how much it takes. And then I'm gonna clip it in place and then baste stitch it. You can absolutely skip this step, especially if you're new to piping. Piping can be really tricky, but again, the end results can be stunning, so don't dismiss it. You can do it. Ooh. These are clips from Sally Beauty Supply. They're called Salon Care. They're single prong alligator clips that are about 1.75 inches long. And I love them. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna zoom you in for this part so you guys can see where to follow. Oh, sorry. That doesn't help. See if I can move you in a little closer. Sorry for the shakiness. And that didn't help at all. All right, zoom me back out just a little bit. All right, sorry. So I'm going to follow along the edge of this piping, but not on the inside edge. So with my walking foot, it kind of just, the inside of my foot rests along that piping. You can use a zipper foot if you're using a regular machine with this, and that should help. But you don't want to sew through that thick cord. You just want to sew right next to it. So hopefully I can show you. So you can see there's the basting stitch of the piping, and then I just sewed right next to it. And then I'm going to repeat that step over here, this other one. Trimming my excess thread. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my lining piece and put it right sides together. Clip it from the back side. And then flipping it over, you're gonna sew about 1/8 of an inch past your basting stitch. So down further, and that's gonna catch that piping perfectly. So I'm gonna make my stitch length a little bit smaller, switch it to about a 4. And again, I'm just gonna sew to the left. Yeah, to the left of that stitch line. You don't wanna come in too far. You just want to sew right next to that, and you can kind of feel that piping on your finger, underneath your finger. Just want to catch it nice and tight. And that way when you pull the edges back, your piping is caught. And then I'm going to use pinking shears along that seam if I can. Yes, I can. And you don't want to cut way too close, but these pinking shears are going to help that curve lay flat. So that's what the pinking shears do. And then when you flip it over and iron it, it'll lay nice and flat. But I'm going to do my other one, and then I'm going to iron that from the wrong side, not the vinyl side. So right sides together, pinning it from the other side. Pinking shears along that top edge. And then I'm going to flip it over. Make sure that you do not iron your vinyl, or you will melt it, you will ruin your iron, you will ruin your bag. Don't iron the vinyl. So iron it from the lining side, and use a lot of steam if you can. If you're using leather, don't use steam. Because any water on your leather is bad news. Any water on your leather, yes. I thought I said any leather on your water. Either one, just don't do it. So, got them steamed, and now I'm going to top stitch, and I am going to continue that double stitch look. I'm going to switch my stitch length to a 4.5, keep my top stitch length consistent. I'm just going to pull that seam out, stitch, and go nice and slow around the edge. And then I'm going to stitch all the way around the bag. second line of stitching is going to come 1/2 inch down from the other side. Not 1/2 inch, but just my little foot length. So that's what your side pocket will end up looking like. And then you can trim your excess on the sides. If you have excess lining thread, fabric showing, I would recommend cutting it. Otherwise, it's gonna mess you up later with your seam allowance. So I'm gonna fold this in half, and I'm going to make a tiny little snip along the bottom so that I know where that center is, so I can match it up on my side panels in a minute. Okay. So pulling this seam out completely. Going along that top edge nice and slow. Kind of pulling it out as I go. Following my original stitch line down a little bit. And then I'm going to trim off the excess. If you did not catch your lining fabric, you can baste it again. But you do have 1/2 inch of a seam allowance, so it's not a big deal. You don't need to start over. This is okay. You'll be fine. So I'm going to fold this in half. Make a little snip along the bottom. And then I'm going to grab my side panel. And then I can see the center mark on my foam. It's really faint now, but I'm just going to line those up and add a clip. And I'm going to add 2 clips along the bottom. So I've got a total of 3 clips along the bottom, but I added 2 more. And then the outer pocket is a little bit bigger than the side, which is good. So you want to line those up, and it'll kind of make this like 3D shape. I like to call it like a shoe organizer or like a big giant slipper. You just like put them on your feet and walk away, but don't. I'm just gonna clip those all together. And then I'm going to baste this pocket on. I'm gonna make my stitch length a little bit longer because it is a base stitch. Your side pocket is attached, but we are actually going to be adding piping to this entire piece. I know you're like, really, more piping? Are you kidding me? Trust me, the end result is gonna look good. So we're adding 3 clips to the bottom, and then we are folding the top side. One more, but whatever. All right, so we're gonna grab our 1-inch ruler, which is right here. I was looking for it somewhere else. And we're gonna make little marks from the very top. We're gonna mark 1 inch. Hopefully you can see those there and there. Both pieces, 1 inch, 1 inch. And this is gonna be where we're gonna start and stop the piping. Hopefully I have enough, we shall see. If not, I'll go grab some more. You're gonna fold this over at 90-degree angle. I just kind of pinched it. And that is going to start at the 1-inch line. I'm gonna add a clip. So it's gonna overhang a little bit, but you want the very edge of the piping to be at the edge of your bag. I'm just gonna slowly clip it around. You need to do this after you add your pocket, otherwise you're not even gonna see the piping. So keep that in mind, and then you're just gonna go really slowly around the outside edge, curve. All the clips you can. Okay. And then you're pretty much going to cut it to the exact length of that panel, but you're going to fold the edge over at a 90-degree angle again so that it's resting just at that 1-inch mark. I'm just going to use this clip here. So that's what that's going to look like. And I'm going to go ahead and just quickly repeat it. Nope, it's not going to fit. Dang. That's okay, I can use this for something else. Do I have a scrap of it? Ooh. Snap. I do. I've got a scrap. Save your piping, guys. Save your piping. I've actually always wanted to add piping along the very bottom seam, but using cotton piping for that would be not the smartest idea because it'll wear away over time. Maybe someday I'll make like an all leather one. Ooh, girl. Alright, need all the clips. All the clips. Alright. Adding the piping for the very first time you make this bag is probably going to make it take about an hour longer than it should. So keep that in mind. You're probably like, I just wanted to see how this bag is made. I didn't want more ideas. I didn't want to have to go buy more supplies. Curse you. Curse you. Alright. So there is the piping added to that piece, and now I'm just going to baste it in place. I am going to start from the very top of the bag. This is going to help later on with your seam allowance, keeping it all straight. And I'm just sewing right next to that piping. You don't want to go through it or anything like that. You just want to go right next to it. Okay, I'm gonna have to change my needle because I'm having skipping stitches issues. Then, fun, we need to sew through the piping again, but along this outside edge, because what can happen is this can start to flip up and then it'll get caught in your seam on the outside, which isn't good. So we're just gonna go about 1/8 of an inch from the edge this time and make sure to catch all the raw edges of that piping. Okay. So that's what that looks like. We're just gonna repeat that. Right next to the stitch line. If you have a walking foot industrial, you'll kind of get used to where it'll meet. So now we are ready to add these side panels to our bag. I'm gonna go ahead and make my lining really quick before I do that, just because I'd like it to be done. If that doesn't sound like the worst thing ever. Looking for the zipper. This guy looks nice. It's a nice cream colored zipper. It goes with our color palette. The lining goes pretty quickly. I will be adding a slip pocket and a zippered pocket. So let's just go ahead and start with our slip pocket because I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with it. What piece is which? These are literally the same size, you guys. How did that happen? Okay, well, okay. Weird. So for our top edge, we're gonna iron it. This is waterproof canvas, so a slip pocket with regular fabric is a little bit different. This fabric is thick and it can, like, it's thick. If you've worked with it, you know. So what I'm gonna do is I'm rolling over this top edge twice, and then I'm gonna stitch it down after I iron it, real carefully. This piece is way bigger than I need it to be, but that is okay. Okay, so there's that. And then I'm just gonna lay it over top of my panel with raw edges, honestly. I'm gonna clip it from the wrong side. Is that too high almost? And then I'm going to sew it from the back side along all the edges. Yes, I could have cut it, but why? I have to sew it anyway. And then I'm going to cut off the extra. Bada boom. Slip pocket. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. Zipper pocket time. Yeah. clip this on while I'm here. Okay. So I kept this part clipped so that I'd have a nice center crease. I'm going to cut this piece in half because it's my birthing pocket anyway. Oh man, I kind of wanted to add a pocket overlay for her. Maybe I'll still do it. You guys can hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna lay this over top. I'm gonna grab my zipper cutout template from By Piera. These are a lifesaver. Okay, so it's a 7-inch zip that I'll be using. So I just line up my center tick mark, lay it on top, and then trace out this hole. Boop, boop, boop. No measuring required. It's nice. I'm not gonna add a pocket overlay. That's okay. I didn't leave quite enough space for that anyway. Back stitch, go along, back stitch, turn, back stitch, back stitch. I do not sew the box closed because it can cause puckering, and 2 parallel lines usually does the trick. You just want to make sure they are as parallel and even as possible. So I'm going to cut the center and then go cut it out at a V. And then I'm going to flip it right side out and iron it from the right side of the bag. Lining. Nice and freshly pressed. And then the way I add my zipper is I just hold on to this start and the stop of it and kind of eyeball it straight, hold on. And I like using number 5 purse zippers for my linings nowadays because it's a larger zipper tape, so it's easier to catch within that opening, and it's just a nice big zipper pull, easier to find, easier to grab. That's what she said. Okay, and then back up the other side. Okay, I have to change my needle. So far so good, but when I get to those other fabrics, it's not going to like it. Clip that thread, and then we're gonna grab other lining piece, clip it on. And then we're just sewing in a U shape and leaving the bottom open. And then you can trim your extra if you'd like. And then I'm going to flip this up by about 1/2 inch and press it. And then you want to leave this open. So you should be able to see your hand through the pocket, and that is your birthing hole. Okay. So and I like to just repeat kind of what I did on the outside, and I sew the bottom of the lining too. It just makes it look like you went the extra mile, I guess. I don't know, I'm a weirdo. ready to fold this in half. Match your top long edges and make a crease, and then just make a little tiny snip so that you know where to add the center of your side panels, which I'm gonna fold in half as well. And add a little snip. And clip. So you wanna match up that side clip or that center snip, and then bring your top edges together. And if they're a little bit off, it's okay. That just means you didn't quite use the correct seam allowance along the bottom. You can always trim your excess slightly. Okay, and then we're just gonna start clipping that curve. And the way I do it is I'll just kind of pinch it in between my middle finger, my pointer finger, and with my thumb. The more clips, the merrier. All right, starting at the top, you want to start at exactly where, I'm gonna call it the ledge, the ledge of the Annette is. So that side panel where they connect, so. Stitch length is set to 3.5. And I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then a little bit wider as I go towards the bottom. This is gonna make it a nice, really, bobbin? I thought you'd get me through the lining. It's all that double stitching I did. Ah! Okay, well that's in the trash now. Okay, well at least I know this will work. You want to make sure you push your zipper pocket out of the way. You don't want to sew through it. Okay then. Yeah, it's time to change this needle. It's done for. When you replace the needle on your industrial machine, you want to make sure you follow the instructions for your specific machine. For this one, the divot in the needle needs to be facing towards the right, and then thread from the left. They say you want to change your needle after every 8 hours of sewing. So for me, it's like a new needle a day because I sew a lot. All right, so let's go ahead and add the other side of the lining panel. Line up those center snips. I guess I do 3 clips along the bottom, and then I line up the top edges. and then pinch inside the curve. So there's our outside edge. Make sure you're not sewing through your fabric for your zipper pocket. And just slightly widen your stitch length as you get towards the bottom. This is going to make it so your lining isn't saggy or too big for your bag. And now we're ready to trim our excess seam allowance, finish the exterior of our bag, and add the zipper. Excess seam allowance is cut down, and we are going to turn it right side out. So there you have your slip pocket, and then we have a nice zippered pocket. It's a nice bright, fun bag. I'm really excited about this. All right, make sure I know where my, oh dear, what has happened? I need to get my clip holder back over here. I'll show you what the stapler's for in just a minute. Okay, I'm going to fold the exterior of my bag in half, just like I did with the lining. Snip it and snip it. This is going to help me line up the side panels. So I'm grabbing my side panel. I can still see my center marking on the phone. I'm gonna line that up with the clip and add 2. And then we're going to line up the top. You can work your way down. And by golly, using those templates makes for a perfect fit. Okay, so this is where our stapler is going to come in handy. These curves, when you're sewing around, can kind of pop open, and that's not good. So I'm just taking it and stapling 2 or 3 times within that curve. They will be removed. You only want to staple within the seam allowance, but it helps so much. So hopefully you can see there's 2 staples there and 2 staples there. And then we're ready to sew. So my stitch length is set to 3.5, and I'm coming in about 1/8 of an inch from my basting stitch on the piping. So there's my piping stitch. So there's, right now I can see a total of almost 3 stitching lines. So the one on the very outside is where we basted our piping. The one inside of those is where we put our pocket on. And then the one next to that is where we basted really close to the piping. And we want to sew on this side of that to the left. And just kind of slowly turn the bag as you go. If you have to readjust, leave your needle in, lift up the foot, and readjust that way. If you're using really thick fabrics, your staples may not have helped. But we're just gonna go around the curve, nice and slow. Put your needle in, kind of lift up and rearrange. You can even use your hand inside here to feel around that curve and make sure your fabric isn't getting bunchy, because you don't want that. Just kind of lift up, rearrange. And then take a deep breath, because you're out of the curve and you can just sew straight. Get back to the top and back stitch. So now you want to check that your piping is nice and tight along that curve. And ooh baby, it is. Oh, she looks good. So I'm going to cut my excess seam allowance. If you're using really nice expensive scissors, please, please, please remove your staples first. These were nice scissors and then I didn't remove my staples, so now they're okay. I'm gonna turn this right side out really quick, just so you guys can see what that looks like. Okay, so it's really subtle, but that's what that piping looks like along that curve. And it should be nice and tight. Gorgeous, right? It's gorgeous. Oh my gosh, this looks amazing. I was gonna use like a cream piping and I'm so glad I didn't. This like royal jean blue almost is really stunning. And then there's that pop of bright blue. Oh, I am excited. All right, let's hurry up and finish this. Why am I still talking? Okay. I've been really tempted to send people who ordered these bags like the link to the video, like watch this bag be made, but I don't want to like mess up and them see it or something. I don't know. Maybe they already are watching it. Lining up that top. Okay, grabbing my stapler, I'm just gonna add 2 staples in that curve. Do it again. Come in just a little ways from that piping. If you go too far, you're sewing through your piping completely and then you can't see it. So just be careful. like I came in a little too close on one side. It's hard to see the piping, but that's okay. It's handmade. All right, so I'm gonna trim my excess seam allowance, and then we're ready to add our zipper. To add your zipper, you're gonna turn your bag right side out. Oh, bye Ben. And this is where using materials that won't wrinkle really comes in handy. She's so beautiful. Okay. So, time to add our zipper. And I'm just kind of pinching it in my fingers and adding little tiny snips from the outside edges. You can kind of eyeball about 1.25 inches. And you want to turn your bag to the front, whatever you have decided the front is going to be, and you're going to grab your zipper. Look at this zipper. Look how perfectly that matches. Yes. Okay, sorry. So zipper is facing down. You want to see the wrong side of your zipper. I'm using a number 5 zipper. You do not want to use an all-purpose. That won't turn out good. And then turn your zipper at a 45-degree angle down so that it creates a 45-degree angle. And you're going to line that up with your snip. You want to have that 90-degree angle right on that snip. And you're going to add a clip, and then you're going to trail your zipper up and turn your seam allowance one way or the other. I like to point it in, but it can change. It's not a big deal. And then you're gonna turn your zipper at an angle. We're gonna call it a pivot, because that's what everybody who's watched my Annette videos knows that I say. You gotta pivot. And if you wanna say it like Ross from Friends, feel free. All right, and then we're gonna pivot our zipper downward and clip it, and then we're gonna trail it off after that center snip. So you're not going to be sewing through it. Your zipper is going to be trailed off. So I'll show you up close what we're looking at. My zipper is ironed. That's going to help with your zipper being bunched and like weird. So it's going to trail off at that mark. So I'm going to kind of smash my bag down and baste my zipper on. Something that helps your bag not stretch out is starting at the opening of the V. Hopefully that makes sense. On that side panel, you want to start at that V. So before your zipper, and you're going to sew along the top. And I'm going to use like a 4.5. And then you're going to readjust your bag and sew up. And then when you get to that side seam, you're going to lift, you're going to keep your needle in, you're going to lift your foot up, and you're going to pivot the bag. And then you're gonna sew straight. Whoops, you're gonna throw your all over the floor. You're gonna go straight along the top, making sure you're not sewing through the other side of your bag. You're gonna bend your nail back. That's gonna feel great. Okay, and then we're going straight. And then when we get to the end of the main panel, you're gonna leave your needle down, you're gonna lift your foot up, and you're going to pivot. Okay, we're sewing straight down. And we're getting near that snip. So I'm gonna hold on to my zipper, but then pull it away at that snip. So I'm holding on to it with 2 fingers here, and then I'm pulling the tail away. Kind of at an angle like we did beginning. And then I'm gonna go past it. I'm gonna sew all the way down to the V and back stitch. And then I'm gonna lift up. And I'm gonna show you guys up close what I mean. So here's where I ended my stitching, and you can see how I kind of pulled the zipper away. So it's not all the way down, it's pulled away a little bit. And then here's where we started. We sewed up, we pivoted, went down, around. And then you wanna check yourself. When you lift up on your zipper, you should see it's right side up. So keeping it right side up, you're going to unzip it slightly, just slightly, and you're gonna turn this so it's wrong side up. This can get confusing, so that's why you don't wanna unzip your zipper all the way. So we're gonna fold our zipper again at a 45-degree angle and leave that 45-degree angle at that snip. Because if your zipper is in two different places, it's gonna get wonky. So you can see at the top, if it were together, it would be sewn correctly. So I'm gonna go ahead and unzip it completely, and the wrong side of my zipper will be facing up. I know, it gets confusing, but if you sew it on wrong, it's bad news for you. So again, you can see here that it does meet up, but it's gonna be wrong sides out for a little bit. So we're gonna clip and pivot, and clip. You don't wanna pull on your zipper too hard, because again, that can cause the tape to get wonky. So you just wanna gently pull it and clip it across the top. And then clip it at the side panel and pivot it down. And then clip it at that side snip. So here's what we're looking at now. And again, your zipper is gonna look really weird. You're gonna second guess yourself, and you should. But if you followed the steps, it should be okay. So we're gonna start at that back V. We're gonna make sure our zipper is out of the way before we start sewing. This can get really complicated. You just kinda wanna smash it out of the way. Start at that V, back stitch. Make sure the back of your bag is not caught under your foot or anything like that. And then we're gonna hold our zipper with 2 fingers at the snip and then pull the zipper away before it. I wish I had like a camera holder above me. Maybe someone would like to buy me one and send it to me. All right, so we're gonna sew all the way up until our side panel meets the front panel. We're gonna leave your needle in, foot down, lift the foot up, pivot the bag, and sew straight. Please make sure that your bag is out of the way. You don't wanna sew through anything else. Ask me how I know. And sew straight across the top. Try not to let your zipper move at all. You want to make sure it's as flat as possible, or you're gonna have a wonky zipper and it's not gonna look good. You're gonna cry, and I don't wanna hear it. Okay, so we're gonna keep going straight until we get to that side panel. We're gonna leave our needle in. We're gonna lift the foot up. We're gonna pivot. Pivot. Okay. And then sew down. Make sure you're catching your zipper. And then sew all the way to the V where you ended your last stitch. And sewing all the way to those marks may not seem important, but it helps your vinyl not stretch out while you're sewing your lining, and it kind of helps you know where to sew. Okay. So your zipper is attached and it looks wrong. We'll go ahead and zip it up. And if your zipper's on top, you're doing all right. If it's not, go ahead and pause it, grab your seam ripper, try it again. You'll get it, I believe in you. Okay, so we're gonna unzip your zipper all the way. And then this is where my zipper got caught the first time I did it. So what I do is I pull my zipper tape out of the way, and I'm gonna use a clip, and I'm gonna clip it to this side pocket. So again, pulling my zipper out of the way, clipping it to my side pocket. So there's what that looks like. And this really helps it not get caught in a weird way when you're sewing your lining to the bag. So we're gonna go ahead and flip this back to inside out. If you're one of those people who still likes to put the larger exterior into a smaller lining, feel free to punish yourself for whatever you think you might have done, but you don't need to do that. My friend Ashley, she mentioned it, and it's been a lifesaver. She's a genius. All right, so your bag is wrong side out and your lining is right side out. Keep in mind which way you want your zipper to go. I usually like it to be next to the body. So I'm going, like, this is the front of my bag here. Here is my pocket. I'm gonna put it on the opposite side. And we're gonna start by clipping our V's together, the side V. That's what we'll call it. And then we're going to clip those side panels. You can keep your seams facing in the same direction. I kind of like to turn them in opposite directions, just so it doesn't get as bulky when you're top stitching. Sorry. And then your zipper is gonna wanna curl up. Make sure you're pushing it down. That can also be an issue. And you can feel it in your fingers. I hope. I'm so sorry if you don't have feeling in your fingers and I have just reminded you of it and made you sad. Okay. We are about to clip the shiz out of this bag. All right. So right now, if your lining seems too big, you need to take it out. You need to go in a little further on those seams. You do not want this to be wrinkly in any way. It should be a nice, perfect fit. Mine is pretty good. It's not perfect. You can see here there's a little bit of gapping, but it's not too bad. It's a very minimal amount. It's actually pretty good. So again, my zipper is kind of trying to pull itself up at the back end of the zipper, and you just kind of want to move it around in your fingers until it lays flat. You don't want to sew through that in a weird way or your zipper is going to look really terrible. Ask me how I know. I've done it. All right, so clipping that in place, and then I'm going to add one more somewhere here. Sure, why not? All right, so you can ask yourself, do I have enough clips? The answer is probably not. You could clip this even more. You don't want anything to move. This is a crucial point in the bag. So I'm gonna start right here. You can see I didn't leave a clip, that was on purpose. This is a safe place to start because your zipper here, there's no way it could be super messed up. There's no way. You'll be fine. Sorry, super unprofessional here. I'm at low power mode. Okay. Take a breather, you know, you've come this far. I need a breather. Okay. So we're gonna start sewing here. You're gonna come down from your original stitch, from your basting stitch. You should be able to see your original stitch line. Smash this bag down, start sewing about a foot length away. Not literally 12 inches, but I'm using my foot as a guide, the foot of my sewing machine. My stitch length is set to 3.5, and I'm gonna go around the top edge, and when I get to that side panel, we're gonna repeat that same step on the outside. I'm not gonna say every step. I'm just gonna say pivot. So turn your bag, pivot. Sew straight. Get closer to that side panel and pivot, pivot, smash your bag down. Okay, we're reaching the side zipper, so you kind of want to feel with your fingers and make sure everything's laying flat. You want to feel out those 3 layers that you're sewing through. And then when you get to that center, you want to leave your needle in, pivot. I like to add a little back stitch. And now I'm reaching the other side of my zipper and I can feel that it's a little wonky. So I'm gonna just slip my finger in there. Oh yeah, that would have been real bad. Why does that feel so weird? Oh, there it goes. Okay. All right. What's wrong with you? What's the matter? Oh, no, it's okay. All right. Sewing straight. All right, we're almost to that side. Main panel, pivot. Okay, leave your needle in, turn, back stitch, and congratulations, you're back to where you started. That's good. So double check to make sure you've caught every little piece of your lining fabric. That is very important. And then if you want to, you can trim your excess seam allowance. I'm not going to, I don't like to. I'm just going to snip into this outer V, pretty close. You can add just a few snips. You want to make sure you're not sewing through your new stitching, just a little bit through your old stitching. This is gonna help that outer V lay nice and flat. Trim your excess threads. Whew, you did it, congrats. All right, pull out your lining. And if you left your zipper open, you should be good, but you're gonna grab the bottom of your lining. Kind of make it a taco shape, and that helps me pull it through. Serena Williams, that shiz. Whew. Okay. Go ahead and push out the bottom of your bag. Ow. If your purse feet got a little messed up, this is a nice time to straighten them out. Flatten them back down. Push out all your corners. Unclip your zipper. Don't need to clip it anymore. And then, I guess it might help if I finish taking out my lining. And then you can go ahead and push your lining back into the bag. pretty much just start clipping. Oh, didn't push out this corner very well. Alright, so now you can sew your opening closed. I like to do this before I top stitch so that I don't forget. Fingers crossed, I haven't done it yet. I add a little woven name tag. Zip it up, and then I'm going to iron it a little bit from the inside. Pull up on your zipper a little bit, and then you'll know that you've pulled it out all the way. And I'm just going to press it from the lining side. A little bit of steam. Now you can test it by zipping it. Oh, she looks nice. Okay. Now I left my zipper really long because we're going to cut the excess off and add a zipper end from my website. It's pretty nice. All right, so I'm going to start on the back side, right around here. Elongate your stitch to about a 4.5. Actually, what I like to do is start with my stitch length as tiny as possible and back stitch, because that is going to secure it, and then you can go. And then again, you're just pivoting around the outside edge with your top stitch. And just kind of roll the lining over in your fingers from the back side. Make sure you're not sewing through the other side as well. So good. All right, so I'm gonna zip it back up, reshape. Why does that look weird? I think once I add handles, it'll be okay. So I'm going to leave my zipper trail about 2.5 inches. You can actually save this and buy another zipper pull and bring it to life again, I guess. So I'm going to take my lighter along the edge and just, that'll help keep it from fraying. Got my screwdriver ready. So I'm going to fold the end of my zipper under halfway on both sides, and then I'm going to fold another end under and another end under. another and another and another. So this makes it really, really small, and it makes it the exact width of the teeth. And then again, I'm gonna kind of melt it together. I'll just take this really quick and just kind of push it together. If you have a strap end clamp, that helps too. Then you just slide that zipper pull on there. Usually 2 good pushes is enough. You just want to make sure that you've caught it in there. Okay. So this is what it'll look like from the top, and then underneath you're ready to add your little screw. So adding it to my electric screwdriver. And just make sure you go in straight. The electric screwdriver is really strong, much stronger than your hands. So you just want to go all the way. And now your zipper end is attached, and we can add our handles, which I'm just going to rivet on really quick. So I like to clip on the handles first, just so I can get a feel for how it looks. I think it looks amazing. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my rivet hole punch and 4 rivets. And that is it. The bag is finito. Thank you guys so much for joining me while making this. I hope that some of the tips in this video help you make your own, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.